Good evening and welcome to this evening's Cabinet meeting on Tuesday the 17th of March. My name is Councillor David Thomas. I'm the leader of the council and we will get underway with a little piece of housekeeping. So we're not expecting a fire alarm this evening. Should the alarm sound, please exit via the nearest exit and gather in the car park next to the library. Can I ask if all mobile phones and electronic devices are turned to silent and also not placed near the microphone stations? Excuse me. Please note that we are using hybrid meeting arrangements with officers and councillors who are not members of the Cabinet having the option to join the meeting via Zoom. We are also live streaming this meeting via the Council's YouTube channel to encourage more people to engage in our public meetings. Please can I remind everyone to use their microphones when speaking and turn them off when finished. Finally, anyone attending the meeting remotely must use their raise hand function when they wish to speak and to declare any interests at the appropriate time. If anyone attending the meeting remotely loses connection, the meeting will continue and you will have the option to follow the meeting via the YouTube live stream. So let me start off with apologies, please.
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Tranter and Councillor Billings is joining the meeting slightly late today.
Thank you very much indeed. So, item 2, to confirm as a correct record the minutes of the Cabinet meeting of the 17th of February. So moved from the Chair.
Very happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you very much. All those in favour, please indicate.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. If I could ask if any member has a pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest to please declare that at this point. None declared, and we have no urgent items this evening. So we will move straight into our Brixham, item 6, which is Brixham Town, Old Paignton and Torquay Harbour Conservation Area Appraisal and the Boundary Review Adoption. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. The new Conservation Area Appraisal for Brixham, Old Paignton and Torquay Harbour represents an important and positive step towards protecting and enhancing the historic character of Torbay. These areas are among the most distinctive parts of the bay, containing historic buildings, traditional harbourside environments and streetscapes that reflect the region's maritime heritage. Updating the Conservation Area Appraisal ensures that these special qualities are clearly understood and safeguarded for future generations. The updated appraisal have been prepared as part of a wider heritage initiative supported by the National Lottery Heritage Fund through the Heritage Places programme. This partnership aims to strengthen heritage protection while supporting sustainable generation across Torbay. The new assessment review the architectural and historic significance of each area, identifying key features that contribute to their character and provide guidance for future development and change. Importantly, the appraisal process also involves public consultation, giving residents, businesses and local stakeholders the opportunity to contribute their views. This collaborative approach helps to ensure that conservation policies reflect the values of the community and support the long-term vitality of the towns. The updated documents will also guide planning decisions and help to ensure that new development respects the historic setting of these areas by identifying opportunities for improvement as well as preservation. The appraisals encourage thoughtful investment that enhances the appearance and function of the harbours and town centres. Overall, the new Conservation Area Appraisal is a positive and forward-looking initiative. It highlights the unique heritage of Brixham, Old Paignton and Torquay Harbour, while providing a clear framework for their future management. By protecting historic character and supporting appropriate developments, the appraisal will help to ensure that these iconic coastal places remain attractive locations to live, work and visit. So I'd like to, I'll read out the recommendation, and the recommendation is that Brixham Town, Old Paignton and Torquay Harbour CAAs and associated boundary changes be adopted, as set out in Appendixes 1, 3 and 5, and that delegated authority be given to the Director of Pride in Place in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Place Development and Economic Growth and the Cabinet Member for Pride in Place, Transport and Parking, to make minor changes, corrections and non-material amendments to the Brixham Town, Old Paignton and Torquay Harbour Conservation Area appraisals prior to formal publication.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor. And I know that Councillor Billings was looking forward to seconding this item. Unfortunately, he is caught in traffic and is hoping to be with us very soon. So I will absolutely second this. Oh, Councillor Billings. Well, I will second it. There we go. Just absolutely perfect timing. And we are, Councillor, we are just on the Brixham Town, Old Paignton and Torquay Harbour Conservation Area appraisal. And I know that you were keen to second this. So before I go any further, I will quickly invite you to second this particular proposal that Councillor Lewis has just placed. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chair. That was very kind, and my apologies to your meeting for being slightly delayed by the traffic on the Ashburton Road where there was a crash. But no, I think these new conservation area appraisals very much needed. Very sensible update that we're bringing forward, so therefore we'd be delighted to second.
Thank you very much indeed. Do we have any comments around the Cabinet table? Let's move outside of the Cabinet. Councillor Law.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to put on record our thanks to the officers who've produced these comprehensive and informative conservation appraisals. And my goodness, don't they vividly demonstrate what a rich architectural and cultural heritage that we are blessed with in Torbay. I'd also like to thank Rachel Quiddy for the work she's undertaken with groups of young people in schools to bring our rich history and heritage to life for the next generation. You will all have heard me say it before that our children are 23% of our population, but 100% of our future. And by engaging our young people in our heritage, it not only helps to foster in them a sense of belonging to the Bay, but vividly brings to life for them the legacy of our forefathers that will be theirs to protect and champion in the future. So well done to everyone involved. It's a great piece of work. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor. Any further comments? So thank you. We'll just bring this back to the centre. I think conservation and heritage, there are many planning authorities around the country that don't actually have conservation areas or have heritage areas because literally they don't have the wonderful heritage that we're able to celebrate here in Torbay. Delighted that this appraisal of these areas is coming forward. There's been a lot of work done in the background and it's recognised in this document. Before I go to the vote, are there any further comments? Let's go back to Councillor Lewis.
Thank you very much. And I echo what Councillor Law said. Thank you to the officers, everyone else, and to the working party who fed into the any changes that were being proposed. I didn't go into complete details because I know you would have all read the 500 plus pages of the report, therefore I didn't want to duplicate it, but very happy that we've got full support on this. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. So let's move to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. We move on to item 7, which is the Council Business Plan 2023 to 2027, refresh of 2026. I am pleased to propose this particular document. And this is not just another document. This is our delivery plan. It's how we turn ambition into action and how we ensure that our priorities as a council are translated into real outcomes for the people of Torbay. This refresh matters because it keeps our plan alive. It reflects progress, responds to change, and ensures that we remain focused on what truly matters to our residents. So what does this plan actually do? So at its heart, this plan is about three things. It's about supporting our communities and protecting the most vulnerable, delivering pride in place through regeneration and better environments, and driving economic growth and opportunity. It brings together clear actions, milestones, and measurable outcomes so that we can track delivery and hold ourselves to account. So just for a moment, there's a lot of information in here, but I do want to just hit on 5 main points that I think are really key to this document. First, the document, it is focused and deliverable. It's not a wish list, it's a realistic programme aligned to our medium-term resource plan. Secondly, it strengthens our commitment to early intervention and prevention, supporting people to live independently, reducing long-term demand on services and improving well-being across Torbay. Third, it continues to prioritise children and young people, including to work towards child-friendly community status and expanding family hubs, ensuring better life chances and support for families. Fourth, it reinforces our ambition for regeneration and economic growth, with major projects across Torquay, Paignton and Brixham, helping to create jobs, attract investment and revitalise our town centres. And finally, it puts real emphasis on community empowerment, supporting residents, businesses and voluntary groups to play their part in shaping the future of Torbay. So in conclusion, this business plan refresh, it's about continued delivery. It's about making sure that what we say we will do, we will actually deliver. It's about improving lives, strengthening our communities and building a better future for Torbay. For those reasons, I am proud to propose the Council Business Plan 23-27 Refresh 2026. And I look to Councillor Lewis to second this document.
I'm very happy to second this council business plan, and as you quite rightly say, Chairman, it is about delivery. We are committed to deliver, and we will deliver. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's open up for debate. Councillor Long.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I just wonder whether in future years it might be productive to have this come through overview and scrutiny first to allow for more of a positive conversation rather than it just automatically coming here and in this rather more confrontational atmosphere. And then there's also the opportunity to feed in from all councillors as well. I remember when it first came, the first business plan came, I mentioned the equality impacts assessments, and there's a phrase in there still which seems to have been followed through from year to year on a number of the equality impacts, where it says it is not anticipated that there are any adverse impacts. But as we enter year 3, I would have thought that we might know now whether there might be some adverse impacts on equalities, and I just wonder whether there are any impacts which Cabinet members can alert us to, or indeed positive impacts on equality issues of the business plan. I just wanted to address, first of all, priorities P4.1, and there are 2 aspects to that. After all, we've heard about the importance of delivery. The first was in relation to the rollout of the weed-free streets programme, and like many of us, I've been going to and from Brixham just recently and driving across much of Torbay, and there seems to be a weed pandemic going on, even in tourist areas like Goodrington, and I just wonder whether we could have an indication when there might be actually some delivery on it. And we heard at council that apparently Barton is sparkling, but I have pictures on my phone of lots of weeds and the shopping area by Barton Shops where the area is absolutely filthy. And the other aspect of this which caught my eye is the business plan contains the phrase rollout of street sign cleaning programme. And I hadn't realised how supportive I was being by bringing forward an amendment at Council in February of an amendment to bring forward a rollout of street sign cleaning. And I was we're just wondering why the administration therefore voted against that. I understand that there might be a efficiency programme as part of Brighter Bay. I just wonder if there could be a bit more detail about that efficiency programme that's going to bring forward, because it must be a bit confusing for members of the public to see the administration voting down that amendment. And also I'm getting a lot of questions regarding Operation Town Centre, that's C1.1. Obviously that's not feeding through to the public yet, so I was just wondering whether when the public might actually start seeing some improvement that. And finally, E3 talks about improving transport links throughout the bay, and I just note that as part of the combined authority which was meant to bring powers down from government, but the only power transfer seems to be going from up from Torbay to the combined authority, which does seem slightly perverse. But I'll leave my comments there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further comments? Okay, so in which case we'll come back to inside the cabinet. So let's try and answer some of the points that were raised. There was a number of issues that actually, Councillor, you said that this process at cabinet is confrontational. I don't recognise that particular objective of this particular meeting. I think it's a real opportunity for us to have a conversation both ways without it being confrontational. And you spoke about it not coming to overview and scrutiny. Well, obviously, overview and scrutiny, you are the chairman, and I presume that you set the agenda for overview and scrutiny. So you obviously get a list of what's coming through. So there was every opportunity to place this on the agenda of overview and scrutiny, and of course we would have been delighted to attend as we always do. So you spoke about the EQIA, and the reason there are no negatives in there or not anticipated is because the work has been redone, and if there was adverse impact, they would have been recognised as risks. There are no anticipated negatives still coming forward from the work. So let me move forward to 4.1, or at least P 4.1, which, if you're following along from the paperwork, is page 640. You rolled out, you brought up two particular issues. The first one was roll out the weed-free programme, and you wanted to know when that actually starts. Actually, if you'd have read just a little bit further down on the same line, it actually says it starts from April 2026. It's a brand new programme of rolling out the weed-free streets together with the street signing cleaning programme, two brand new programmes rolling out from April of this year, 2026. So that is something that we will deliver on. That is something that our residents can look forward to seeing. So absolutely delighted that you've picked up on those, delighted that they are already in our plan and that we will be delivering on those items. And I'm sure that Councillor Billings will probably like to say some more about either or both of those. And the final point that's of worth some merit is E3 and the transport links. Well, I think we have an awful lot to shout about when it comes to transport in Torbay. We are only the second place in the whole of the country to have a 100% electric fleet. Absolutely fantastic news for Torbay. And so transport links I think there's a huge plus, and it was great to see you at the launch of that electric event last week. I'll give way to Councillor Billings, who I'm sure will want to respond as the cabinet member a little bit more on that one. I will come back to myself to wrap up before we move to the vote. But I've got Councillor Bye first, and then Councillor Billings. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Leader. And I like to think, as you do, that we are one big happy family at these cabinet meetings, as we are when we get together at Overview and Scrutiny and Corporate Parenting Board and many other meetings. So absolutely, I don't see this as a confrontational meeting. All I want to say is out and about in the Wellswood ward, whether that's walking around doing the litter picks or the fundraising walk I'm going to do at the weekend, or it's delivering the Beach Hut magazines, I have never seen it look so clean and tidy. I am hugely impressed with the improvement in the street scene, certainly in the part of the bay that I represent. So it seems always like criticism. And I think we should praise all those in Swissco who do an amazing amount of work. Until today, when spring at last seems to have arrived, it has been awful, awful weather for the folk who go out and do that work, and constant cleaning and tidying up. And I see them, and I know the staff, and we exchange pleasantries, and they do a great job. So let's say well done to Swissco. Very pleased to see that we're making the progress, and my experience in the Wellswood ward is very positive, and the feedback that I'm getting from residents is equally positive. On the matter of the budget, the amendment was to, as I understand it, was to put money in so that there would be money to spend on the smartening up of the street signs. But if we're going to do it within the existing resources, it isn't that we got it wrong at budget, it's that we had the correct budget and we're going to get on with that improvement. There are a few signs, absolutely, that could do with polishing up a bit. So if we can do that within the existing resources, so much the better. But I'm very happy to support this business plan, and you'll get my vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Billings.
Well, thank you, Chairman, and like yourself and Councillor Bye, I don't recognise the word confrontational. I would have said collaborative and constructive. That's my take on this discussion, and I appreciate contributions from all colleagues, and I hope they can come on a constructive and collaborative basis themselves as well. Taking the three matters that were raised in relation to weeds, street sign cleaning, and transport, and I'll leave the best till last, and that's very clearly transport. Weeds, as you've highlighted, Mr. Chairman. The business plan does make clear that the programme rolls out from April 2026, and although, as Councillor Byers referred to, spring is fast coming, it hasn't come that fast as far as I was aware just yet. So that's something that we'll see more as it's delivered, and I would just like to focus on where we've come from to where we're going to. We came from a position where at the start of our administration, previously, different political priorities had made the brave decision to purchase some electric quad bikes. Those were used for weed spraying. Electric quad bikes working as weed sprayers have a significant electrical demand because the battery not only has to power the vehicle for forward motion, it also has to power the pumps that deployed the weed spray chemicals. And unfortunately, those vehicles were simply not up to the task. The batteries could not provide the electrical demand required. So one of the things we did previously throughout our administration is we replaced the electric quad bikes with some standard petrol ones, which of course, through that engine running in a more conventional way, had a greater electrical power to power the ability to deploy the chemical. But clearly, our residents expect more than simply tackling weeds by chemicals. And that's why I'm particularly delighted with this programme, because it's a combination of getting the right kit in place, but it's also working with the other resources. And that's community payback. Our administration's made a lot of effort to ensure that through the work with the community payback team, those are people who, through virtue of what may have happened previously, have been required to do some community service to focus minds going forwards. We're using that resource to manually deal with an awful lot of weeds around the bay, and that enables, through other efficiency savings, that to be picked up through the Swissco family without simply relying on chemicals. And that's why I think it's a very appropriate programme. It picks up lots of the things that our residents have told us, not only wanting weed-free streets and curb fronts, but also wanting to do that in a way that's sensitive and appropriate for our environmental designations. Then in relation to street sign cleaning, the point that was discussed at full council, again in a constructive and collaborative way, I hope, was not that in any way it was an idea that we didn't share the aspiration of. It was simply a matter of how it was being funded. And I was really clear it was wrong to, within the Brighter Bay budget, allocate an amount of funding for a specific task when it was a particularly arbitrary amount, but rather it was better to keep the Brighter Bay budget as one pot and allow officers to draw from that as operational requirements throughout the year required. I think that is what's enabled us to have the step change in how our area feels and presents, both for our important residents and visitors, and I didn't want to take away from the operational efficiencies of allowing officers to deploy money on that way. In no way was that taking away from the concept of cleaning the street signs was a good idea. Clearly it was. We'd already been working on that, and that's why I'm very pleased that we've been able to do that and feed that in through the process where Swissco teams are already out and about in the bay, working in all of our residential areas. And then transport. Well, I'm sure all those present, both yourself as leader of the council and Councillor Long as leader of his group, and other councillors that were in attendance at the launch of the new stagecoach bus fleet. I'm sure everyone that was there, considering the media presence, realised the importance of that as an event. Torbay, I'm very proud. We are the first in the southwest to have an entirely electric bus fleet. We're only the second in the country, and I think that speaks very strongly to how we've been an attractive place to do business, because that project is £30 million of private sector funding that's being invested in Torbay to deliver smoother, newer, cleaner, more suitably equipped, quieter buses that are much nicer to ride on, and they're much nicer as a pedestrian to drive, to have driven past you, because no longer from the diesel fumes from a vehicle that may be 25 years old, you've got a brand new electric bus. So certainly I would sustain all those three things we are delivering. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm seeing no further hands. So just before we go to the vote, everything we do, it's important to look at who actually benefits from the things that we are doing here. And so with this particular proposal, who does benefit? I think the residents through improved services, safer communities and a better quality of life. Our children and young people through stronger support and opportunities. Businesses through regeneration, investment and skills development. Vulnerable people through better care, support and early intervention, and our communities through greater empowerment and involvement. Quite simply, this is a plan to benefit every part of Torbay. So I will move to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. We move on to item 8, which is the best start in life. Councillor Bye.
Thank you again, Mr. Leader. And I'm absolutely delighted to be putting forward the best start in life, Torbay's local plan. I want to say thank you to professional colleagues, to the Director of Children's Services, Nancy Meehan, sat with me this afternoon, and her team for putting this together so very quickly on top of all the other things, for example, the preparation for Ofsted and the reorganisation of children's services to implement the government's changes and reforms, to do this on top of everything else when it has to be published by the end of this month. So I am fairly new to this, and in terms of new to the Best Start in Life plan, because it has only been work undertaken quite recently. I'm going to first of all read out the recommendation and then follow that with a brief report from the Overview and Scrutiny, which considered yesterday. So the recommendation is that the Cabinet considers any views from the Children's Overview and Scrutiny Board review on the draft Best Start for Life plan, and that 3.2, that subject to 3.1 above, the draft Best Start for Life plan set out in Appendix 1 to the submitted report be approved, and the Director of Children's Services be given delegated authority to make any necessary amendments to the plan to enable its publication by the 31st of March in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Children's Services. So if you'll hold just 1 second while I push a few buttons, because there's a little thing that I'm going to read out that follows on from that recommendation, which is absolutely following on from the Overview and Scrutiny Board meeting yesterday. We had the Children and Young People's Overview and Scrutiny Sub-Board, and my interpretation, and absolutely Councillor Law is here to speak for herself and to speak for them, that there was support for this from the Overview and Scrutiny Sub-Board, and I've been asked to make reference to this tonight during the proposal and explain that it was reviewed at Children's and Young People's Overview and Scrutiny Sub-Board last night, and we had a very lengthy and detailed discussion, and that they will be monitoring implementation of the plan every 6 months. So this offer to monitor the implementation of the plan, absolutely, I'm delighted to take up, and this will be included within the record of decision. So we're going to that recommendation, but the recommendation adjusted to reflect the kind offer for Overview and Scrutiny to take an interest in this implementation of the plan and to monitor it every 6 months. It is a very ambitious plan. It is all about increasing the number of young children who reach what they call GLD, a good level of development, I've got that right, before they go into school. And it's an ambitious, very definitely an ambitious target. At the moment, 68.5% approximately of young children in the Bay reach a good level of development by age 5, and we want to see that go up to 78%. That certainly is ambitious, and sadly for those who are on the track, as it were, for free school meals, more disadvantaged youngsters at the moment, the achievement rate is only just over half, about 50.7%. We want to see that to increase, to see that go up to 62%, to actually begin to close that gap, so to do much better and to get nearer to the achievements of the broad mass, as it were, of young children. So that is the ambition. I want to read very briefly, if I may, what I've picked out before, which is the vision. So the vision, so we know what this is about. Our vision is that every child in Torbay has the best possible start in life, where they can grow up safe, happy, healthy, learning well, and connected to a strong community. Together with families and partners across all sectors, we are committed to closing gaps in early development and ensuring that more children are ready for school and confident to learn. We will achieve this by delivering joined-up, preventative and relationship-based support from pregnancy to age 5. Then absolutely within that vision we talk about the gaps, and the gaps are here very definitely highlighted in the report. So there's a lot of positive news to report in the report, but we are not shying away from the gaps that we have in the development and particular groups, boys not doing as well as girls, youngsters from more deprived backgrounds, and particularly youngsters or young children who have English as an additional language rather than it being their main language in their home. So that there are various gaps that need our support. I come back to the notes that I made right at the beginning. So it's ambition, it's vision, it's partnership. So it's not just a council thing. So I want to say thank you to our partners. We're working with colleagues in health and we're working with colleagues in the voluntary and community sector. And of course, a lot of early years provision is within the private sector. So it's about working together, everybody, to close those gaps and get to a good level of development for children. We have the infrastructure in place with our family hubs. And if you read towards the end of the report, I think that gives a very, very good flavour of the good work that our family hubs are doing. We were a trailblazer for family hubs. They were started up in 2022. I would suggest they've come to maturity now. We're very, very pleased indeed that the funding is there, that they can continue their good work, and we're getting much, much more involved with families and hearing from them and how we can reach out to them and how they can be more involved with our family hubs. There's also opportunities that have come from a rather strange direction. Sort of every cloud has a silver lining. In the falling numbers in our primary schools, I've noted as I've been around our primary schools, that has actually freed up space in several of our primary schools. I'm thinking particularly of Barton and Watcombe that I've visited, also King's Ash, where there is space that has freed up and there's early years provision in our primary schools, and that's great. It gets the youngsters used to the geography, as it were, of the primary schools. So a lot of work's gone into this. There's a clear ambition, there's a clear vision. It's all about partnership working and doing our very best to ensure more of our very young children reach a good level of development so that they can then flourish when they start in school. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor. Move across to Councillor Tyman, who will second this report.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second this report. I think it gives a very good picture of the state of provision in Torbay in support of early years development, plus a comprehensive and I think honest statement of where we could and should do better. It sets targets where appropriate, and it's nice to see targets within a report, and gives a framework for further improvement, I think, in what is already a good provision and a good service. Excellent report. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to second that it be taken forward and published.
Thank you very much indeed. A lot of detail there from Councillor By and Councillor Tyman. So let me move straight away outside of the Cabinet table, invite the Shadow Cabinet Member, Councillor Law.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor By said a lot of what I was going to say. I'd normally complain about something coming so late to overview and scrutiny, but I think it's important to point out that that is absolutely due to the government's timetable and not to our children's services. And I probably take a little bit of issue about falling numbers being a good thing, because also with falling numbers comes falling funding for our schools. And I think there's a lot of worry amongst our schools about the drop in the funding that they have. But what struck me at overview and scrutiny was definitely how much of the actual fundamental infrastructure we already have in place in Torbay that we through our excellent family hubs. And that wasn't by accident. That was due to the hard work and foresight of our Director of Children's Services and her excellent teams. And obviously I was going to mention the fact that we were chosen as one of only 14 authorities as a trailblazer. And I think that's set us up perfectly to deliver the best start in life. So well done to everyone from our early years team, Public Health 0 to 5, Lincoln, please pass that on, and to our children's services. I believe we won't know for several months whether our plan has been accepted, but fingers crossed that it will be accepted, and everything crossed, even more crossed, that the government endorses it with adequate funding to meet the aims, the good and great aims of this plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Any further comments? Okay, in which case we shall go back to Councillor By.
Thank you, and thank you to Councillor Law, and absolutely your colleagues yesterday who looked at this in great detail, and there was real enthusiasm, and as always you speak with passion. I very much hope that I didn't come across as believing that falling birth rates is a good thing. I think my form of words were that every cloud has a silver lining. So falling numbers in primary schools absolutely has opened up physical space, which has been used wisely in those schools that I gave as examples for early years provision and for nurseries and for very, very young children to start in the primary school geographic settings, although they're separate from older learners. I absolutely would agree with Councillor Law. I'm sure that having a low birth rate in immediately of concern to the finance and the long-term sustainability of some of our schools as it feeds through into the next tier of education, but then into the working age population, it will present us with a huge challenge for our prosperity and hopeful continued economic regeneration. So actually an ageing population with a low birth rate I regard as the biggest challenge that Torbay faces, and I've made that very, very clear. So I do not see a low birth rate as a good thing. All I'm saying is this little aspect of it, that you're freeing up physical space in some of our primary schools, which they are putting to good use. So if I phrase that awkwardly, I apologise. I unreservedly apologise if I made that sound rather confusing. We want have a flourishing younger population, and it may well be through our family hubs and being seen as a family and child-friendly place and providing support for youngsters and families. Maybe more young families will stay in the bay and settle in the bay, and maybe things will begin to turn around, and I would welcome that, because our ageing population is a huge challenge. So having got that off my chest, this is an honest report, as others have said, and I wanted to refer to the summary of key gaps in provision. So it is a very honest report and makes plain what it is we've got to set out to overcome in terms of persistent inequalities and underperformance in key development areas and inconsistent engagement from priority families. Those are some of the headlines that are in the report. But the report is very, very clear in saying where we are, what the gaps are, what the challenges are, and what we're going to do about it. So I want to say thank you again to those who have written this report. It's been a teamwork, but I think the way that the report is set out with a very clear plan should give us confidence that we improve with our best start in life and that we get more of our youngsters school ready and get to that good level of development. So I hope all members will support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor. Let's move to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. We're going to stay with Councillor Bye as we move on to the final item this evening, which is the Spotlight Review on Education, an opportunity to respond to the recommendations of the Children and Young People's Overview and Scrutiny Sub-Board. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you so much. And this was a very full spotlight review on education. I wasn't able to stay right to the end. I wasn't having a particularly good day, but what I sat through at the meeting just a few weeks ago, I thought we had some very thoughtful discussions. So we have 2 recommendations from the Overview and Scrutiny Sub-Board. So that the Children and Young People's Overview and Scrutiny Sub-Board requests the Cabinet to source alternative funding to replace the NTI grant, which ends at the end of this financial year, almost immediately, for the SEND Employment Forum. So it had been recognised that our SEND Employment Forum has done very good work in finding opportunities for youngsters with special educational needs and disabilities. So the response update is that Cabinet notes the requests from Children and Young People's Overview and Scrutiny. Due to the budget proposals having already been fully developed, there was not the opportunity to consider this proposal as part of the budget setting process for 2026-2027. In other words, it came rather late in the day for us to consider when the whole council put the budget together just a few weeks ago. There is no scope to identify alternative funding from within the wider council budget at this time. So the budget has been put to bed, as we know, and we remember that meeting. Cabinet further notes the cessation of the grant funding and recognises the positive impact it has had locally. Responsibility therefore rests with Children's Services to consider whether alternative funding options can be identified to support continuation of the service following the withdrawal of central government funding. So this afternoon, the Director of Children's Services and I spent some time in conversation, so this may well be news to everyone, and I hope I get this right. We're going to look at grants. We're going to see if any of the grants, because there's not endless, I wish it was endless, but there are significant numbers of grants that come for different things, and sometimes they're ring-fenced, as we know, sometimes there is some flexibility. So we're going to see if there are grants that come within Children's Services that seem to fit and support this important aspiration, and see if there can be some flexibility. But in simple terms, we all know that after 2 or 3 quite good years for this council in terms of finances, when we have been able to increase the budget on children's services and in other areas, I think we are entering a more difficult time. So I don't want people to think, wow, it's going to happen. We've got to see if there is a possibility from grants to see if we can use grants to support this good work. So let's see what we can do. Recommendation number 2, that Cabinet be requested to consider options for amending the start time of concessionary bus fares for disabled people to enable them to engage in work. So I think that was particularly for those with this was looking at SEND, wasn't it? It was youngsters, see if we could get youngsters into work and help with their transport. So Cabinet notes the request to consider options for amending the start time of concessionary bus fares for disabled people in order to support access to employment, education and training. Cabinet recognises the potential impact of the current off-peak arrangements on those seeking to engage in work, education or training. However, Cabinet further notes that responsibility for concessionary fares policy sits now at the combined county authority level. Any amendment to the start time would therefore require consideration and agreement by the CCA, as any change would have wider implications across the CCA footprint. Cabinet agrees that this request should be formally raised with the combined county authority for consideration. In the meantime, Cabinet notes that alternative schemes, including employment-focused support, such as Connect to Work, may offer complementary support to individuals affected by concessionary fare arrangements. So a lot of work is underway, and lots of voluntary and community organisations also trying to support youngsters into work. And of course, we had the launch of our Care Experience Hub yesterday up at Ockham, where this particular effort is being put into supporting youngsters who've been through the care system into employment, educational training, and already 2 successes from the youngsters who turned up last Friday, and that was really good. And I was with a resident this morning, a Wellswood resident, as I walked around the ward and spent some time, and I wasn't aware, and someone wanted to get further details of a group connected with the church just adjacent, of people with business and entrepreneurial experience who are working with some of our youngsters with some success to get them into employment, education or training. So absolutely, we must redouble our efforts. Our NEETs figures we would like to see improved, but just the request to make a change to the start for the concessionary buses doesn't seem at the moment to be within our gift. So hopefully that all makes sense. And I would like you to support these responses to the ONS recommendations.
Thank you very much indeed. We'll invite Councillor Jackie Thomas to second this, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor By, for your proposal, and also for that added clarification regarding the grants. So that was very useful. and just want to thank the team for all their efforts in supporting our young people. It's very much appreciated. So happy to second. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Let's open up for debate. Any comments? Councillor Law.
So thank you. Yeah, this is a bit disappointing, especially as noted by Cabinet, the positive impact of this grant. Overview and Scrutiny only became aware of this. It wasn't in the budget because Overview and Scrutiny only became aware of it on the 6th of February. And we made this recommendation actually almost 3 weeks before the budget was agreed. And I wonder when Cabinet was first aware of this grant ending, so that there could have been perhaps more lead-in time to this. If there's no replacement for this funding from government, what work will be impacted by the loss of this grant? And will there be a cut to services that were provided through this grant? So I believe we set up a Children's Services Reserve last year. So would the Cabinet commit to looking at reserves as a stopgap, even a limited amount, until it can be established as part of the base budget next year? As you know, preventative work saves us a huge amount of money further down the line, and I'm really concerned that the lack of this funding, I know Councillor Bai says about going to look for grants, which is very appreciated, but I think we need to look at something more immediate, and I am concerned about what will be lost through not what we won't be able to deliver. With the second recommendation, thank you for this. I actually learned something here, but our local Overview and Scrutiny Board can make recommendations to the combined county authority or county, which way round is it?
Combined County Authority.
Thank you, Combined County Authority. Yeah, so I should have perhaps twigged that is one of those areas where we surrendered that responsibility to them. But I am unclear from the response whether Cabinet will formally raise it with the CCA or whether Children's Overview and Scrutiny should raise it and write to them instead. And also, looking at it, I'm not sure that Connect to Work is able to help with travel arrangement costs. So I thought it was to do with practical support and to make adjustments for people with a disability in their workplace. So could you please confirm whether it can actually help with travel costs? Because that would be a new one to me. Thank you.
Okay, I'll try and pick up on the latter questions, which revolve around the Combined County Authority. Quite happy for Cabinet to raise this directly with the CCA. And it is one of those, it was only last year that those local transport powers ascended into the CCA. So this is the first time that one of those has come up, but happy to take this through to CCA, no problem on that. And my understanding of the Connect to Work programme, and only because that money comes through the Combined County Authority initially, and then is passported through across the whole of Devon, my understanding of that money is it can offer bespoke help for individuals and businesses, actually. So what it's trying to do, it's really trying to connect individuals who may find it difficult to get into work for whatever reason, whether that be a disability or whether that's something that they haven't done for a long time. And it's then trying to find an employer that they can match the two together and work a bespoke package around them. So I think if the circumstances demand it, my understanding is that Connect to Work can actually function in that regard. But let me pass back to Councillor Bai to pick up your substantive point regarding recommendation 1. Thank you, sir.
Yep, thank you. And will you give permission, Mr. Chairman, for our Director of Children's Services to comment on this? Because, of course, we're getting nearly to the end of what's quite a brief cabinet. I'm trying to read her writing, as she's very kindly scribbled notes. Her handwriting is rather better than my handwriting, but most people's handwriting is better than my handwriting, but I wouldn't want to get it wrong. But the general point in terms of reserves and there being a Children's Services Reserve, my memory and my understanding, and I'm looking across to Councillor Tarman, there are still huge pressures on the placement budget, and that's what I thought it was put together for. So, at the moment, Children's Services for this current year is sadly getting towards the 2 million overspend. Again, from my best memory, I should know those figures immediately and with 100% confidence, but it's a very, very significant overspend on placement. That is what those reserves were put together for. That is my memory. We can look at that. We can look at that in detail, but when we are so overspent on that, until we begin to make progress in terms of placements and sufficiency, and hopefully with the sort of work we've been talking about right at the beginning with supporting families and working together to gradually move safely with a reduction of the numbers of young people, children, young people in care. That to me is what the priority of that reserve is. But we can look at grants, and on that particular point, I will now hand over to the Director of Children's Services, who can respond in some more detail. Thank you. And I must turn off.
Thank you, Councillor Bay. So in terms of when we understood this funding was coming to an end, people will recall that we had a number of individual funding streams through a variety of different grants that came through to us. These were combined into 2 specific grants, so we have been looking at what those specific grants actually are covering at the moment. We know that we've had some changes in some of the grants. This was one that hasn't been covered as they combine those grants. What we are now trying to do is look at how we utilise those grants to continue to deliver our preventative services. We have a number of pressures in children's services, not only this, but also with the change in terms of the focus of the aspects of family hubs, which was a 0 to 19. It is now very focused on the 3 to 4 year olds. So we have a number of services that we deliver through family hubs, which are 0 to 2, which aren't now funded through that specific grant. So what we're doing at the moment is we're undertaking a piece of work to look at what we can still provide across all of those while we budget set for next year. But certainly, Councillor By's absolutely right that our placement budget at the moment is reaching a 2 million overspend, and it is having to be offset by other elements. But what we don't want to do is, if at all possible, reduce the preventative service, because they are making an absolutely extraordinary impact on reducing our statutory services at the moment. So we will absolutely try to look at how we can utilise those grants, but we are having to review those in line with them becoming combined into 2 specific grants and what those grants conditions allow us to use them for.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor By, anything further to add? My apologies, Councillor Law would just like to come back, and in the spirit of collaboration, I'm more than happy to invite you back in the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify that reserve was for the transformation work and for implement any necessary things, implementation of stable homes built on love. It was, the reserve was for something separate, but that's something we can check out after the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure. We obviously we're not going to resolve it in this meeting, but we'll get clarity of it outside the meeting, no problem. Let me go across to Councillor By to finally sum up.
I think there's actually a couple of children's services reserves, so they may be the 2 for different reasons. I remember there was a year when we had a very significant underspend, and some of the money at the time, there was a clamour for it to go into the harbours. Remember, they wanted to rebuild the Harbour Reserve at that time, and I pushed for some money to go into a children's services reserve. So I think we may be talking about 2 different reserves, but there we go. There is pressure, as has been confirmed by our Director of Children's Services, as I indicated earlier, a huge pressure on the placement. But we will do our very best to find a way. I think that's the key point. We absolutely want to get more of our youngsters with SEND into education, employment or training. This has been a good scheme. I'm very sorry if it were to come to an end, and we will do our level best to ensure that we continue to support those youngsters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And on that note, we shall move to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. And at 18:29, the meeting is closed. Thank you very much.